Sam Melton here, your fellow reporter. And the Electronic Intifada. We're glad you are back with us. We got a great show waiting for you. Your mediator and reporter, Sam Melton, White Eagle, I'm with you again. And we're getting ready for a great show of Just Say No. Keep watching. Yeah, I have a very heart-wrenching episode and documentary for you here. And it makes me very, very upset. I have 3 daughters. I grew up with 9 sisters. And my father and my uncle, who were tough military men, always had respect for their mothers, for their daughters, and for all feminine women that are honorable and decent. And what the Israelis have done to this young 5-year-old baby girl, they murdered her in cold blood. You will see on this documentary special what happened, and you will hear the voices of her crying. They literally shot the vehicle of her family, of her and her family, 6 others, her sisters, her teenage sister, and disabled the vehicle, and they couldn't drive anymore. The teenage sister, the 5 members of the family were killed. Her uncle, her father. Yeah, we're talking about Hind, this 5-year-old girl that was murdered by the Israeli army in cold blood. They disabled their vehicle, killing many people in the car. Hind's older sister called the Red Crescent to come save them because she was wounded, and her young Hind, a 5-year-old baby, was hysterical. They called the Red Crescent ambulance, got permission from the Israelis, and followed the path they were given. They drove there. It took them hours. Once they got there, the Israelis took a tank and drove straight at the car. Soldiers got out, circling the car, firing automatic fire in the car. You can hear the baby screaming. My God, America, this is insane. This happened January 29th, 2024. It was murder of an innocent baby girl, this beautiful baby girl. I am crushed. I am angry. I am upset. Stop funding Israel's murder. These people are murdering and raping children. How long will you pay for this, America? This is really sad. I am really upset. I've really had enough of this butchery that is being paid for on our dime. And now rumors are, and it's more than rumors, it's been seen, American boots on the ground. So now we're joining in the killing of Israel, of women, pregnant women, mothers, old women, old men, and children. These snipers constantly target children for fun, laugh about it, and gamble as they do it. It is absurd, horrible, disgusting, and beyond any peril of human decency or human rights. We need to stop this, America. Anyway, let's watch this documentary. I hope you'll follow it. I hope you'll see what we're supporting by giving money and weapons to Israel. It is disgusting. It is against the Constitution. It is against all human decency, and it is against the Geneva Convention. It breaks laws on so many levels, and we are supporting this? I don't think so, my friends. I am not. Anyway, check out this thing. Go on the internet. You can read more about Hindra, and Taxpayers Against Genocide is a good group to contact, and Mecca, Middle Eastern Children's Alliance, if you want to get more involved and get more information. All right, let's watch this documentary. Thank you. So-called settlers, no, not settlers, they're gangsters. They're gangs, gangsters, and terrorists. Ground missiles that they can, and with the projectiles, all supplied by America. Hello. And all trained by the Israeli army. The army comes when Palestinians who have just rocks, most of them have nothing, are being harassed by these so-called settlers. No, not settlers, they're gangsters. They're gangs, gangsters, and terrorists. Just like the gangs running around Haiti. These are gangs, my friend. Don't call them settlers. There's no respect here for these animals. No, I wouldn't call them animals. Animals are better than that. For these monsters, for these devils and demons. They're absolutely disgusting. And what they're committing is wholesale murder to rip off other people's houses and land. How long will you take this, America? When will this stop? When do you stand up and take back your democracy and your government? We need to spend money on our children and our education and our hospitals. We need to help the innocent Palestinians that are being terrorized by these gangs of terrorists. They are gangs. They are armed. And the Palestinians are not. They are not Hamas. The Israelis are liars, cheaters, and use propaganda to do their mischief and evil, evil violence of brutality. We need to stop it as soon as possible. I'm begging you, America, wake up. Go to the streets, protest, write your congressmen, write your senators. Stop funding Israel. Stop funding murder, rape, and genocide because they are committing rape. The settlers go in to have picnics and watch people, even babies, children, pregnant women, being raped and sometimes by dogs. My God, how long will you support this, America? This is so terrible. This is so horrible. It's disgusting. It's a disgusting state of affairs, and it defames democracy, and it defames all my brothers who've had flags laid on their coffin. It is shameful. And this monster in the White House is not my president. Trump ain't my president. My last president was John F. Kennedy. I don't call this person. In fact, there's not one person I thought I could call Obama my president, but he failed completely. It's just so disgusting. It is so absolutely harebrained that we're letting our democracy be destroyed by a foreign power, Israel, and we're letting our politicians take Israeli money, which is treasonous. It's treasonous. Biden called himself a Zionist. That is treason. In my daddy's day, men would be shot for doing such disgusting behavior. It's an insult to the flag. It's an insult to democracy. It's an insult to this United States of America. And I am very upset and angry. All right, I hope some of this is penetrating into you, and I hope you will begin to become active to save your democracy before we have nothing left. Before all our money is given to billionaires and to Israel to murder innocent people. Really, my friends, golly, wake up. All right, let's go back to our program.
Last week marked 1 year since October 7th, 2023, when the Palestinian resistance launched an unprecedented, historic offensive against the Israeli military bases and settlements that have besieged the Gaza Strip for 76 years.
The War and Peace Report. I'm Anjali Kamath. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Thursday the U.S. will impose the toughest sanctions in history on Iran after President Trump promised to wage, quote, economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale. Bessent told CNBC that U.S. economic pressure would eliminate the need for return to direct combat with Iran. He said tough new sanctions would collapse Iran's government and warned other nations could face severe economic penalties if they continue to trade with Iran. Iran's foreign ministry condemned the threat of new sanctions as illegal and inhumane. Meanwhile, the USS George Washington aircraft government forces claimed 81 attacks over 24 hours, while Houthi fighters said they'd successfully used drones to strike an airport and an oil facility in Saudi Arabia. In Tunisia, hundreds of protesters marched through the streets of the capital, Tunis, on Thursday, calling for the ouster of authoritarian President Kais Saied, the release of jailed opposition activists and journalists, and the restoration of democracy. The protests come as Tunisia faces deteriorating public services, an affordability crisis, and a shortage of some basic supplies and medicines. Many of the protesters chanted, "The people want the fall of the regime," a popular refrain during the Arab Spring uprising that ousted longtime dictator Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali in 2011. In Mali, a Russian-controlled paramilitary force faces accusations that it carried out the summary execution of 9 civilians, including 4 children, during a raid on a village in the central region of Mopti in July. According to Human Rights Watch, about 100 fighters with the Russia-backed Africa Corps, accompanied by several Malian soldiers, broke into homes, dragged people out, and separated men and boys for beatings and interrogations. They've reportedly killed 6 civilians who tried to flee and detained and executed 3 others. Since 2021, Mali's military junta has relied on Russian mercenaries in its fight against Islamist armed groups. In the occupied West Bank, large groups of armed Israeli settlers stormed Palestinian homes in the town of Sa'ir, northeast of Hebron, earlier today, killing a young Palestinian man and leaving a 70-year-old with serious gunshot wounds. Survivors say the settlers set fire to at least 1 home. Elsewhere, Israeli settlers set fire to a quarry in the South Hebron Hills overnight, causing severe damage to excavators, bulldozers, and stone-cutting equipment. The United Nations reports attacks by Israeli settlers and Palestinians have reached an all-time high in 2026, with an average of more than 6 attacks per day, as the Israeli government continues to approve new illegal settlements. After headlines, we'll go to the Palestinian village of Kusra to speak with Louis Reedy, a Palestinian-American who flew to the occupied West Bank on Monday to help his relatives defend the family home, which Israeli settlers have surrounded for more than a week.
Now, footage has emerged which shows Israeli forces killing 2 Palestinian men in the West Bank after they appeared to surrender. The men are seen leaving a building and lying on the ground in front of Israeli forces in the northern city of Jenin. Palestinian authorities have identified them as 26-year-old Al-Muntasir Abdullah and 27-year-old Youssef Assasa. Both men lift their T-shirts, they hold their hands in the air, apparently to show that they were not carrying weapons or explosives. The Israeli soldiers then appeared to order the men back inside the building before they were shot. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons is in Jerusalem and has the latest.
As so often, you have a massive schism, frankly, between the two sides, because there is outrage among Palestinian communities at what they see as an extrajudicial killing by Israeli forces. This was carried out by the Israeli border police, who actually operate under the auspices of the IDF, and there were Israeli military troops there as well at this moment. This was all part of a very, very big series of activities in the Jenin area, which has long been a scene of tension between Israel, which of course occupies the West Bank through its military, and Palestinians who have pushed back against that occupation. So Israel will describe these people as having been terrorists. The Palestinians, I'm sure, will push back against that, and they will look at that video and say these were people who were trying to surrender at the time, and already a number of legal experts in the West Bank have accused Israel of either an extrajudicial killing or, in some more pointed comments, a war crime by shooting a prisoner who is in the process of trying to surrender. So this has real combustible potential at a time when tensions are high in the West Bank. Now, the Israelis deny all of that. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the very far-right minister in charge of national security, says that, quote, terrorists must die, and offered his full support to the IDF and the border police. And the IDF has put out a statement. Let me read it to you. It says, the wanted individuals were affiliated with a terror network in the area of Jenin. The forces entered the area, enclosed the structure in which the suspects were located, and initiated a surrender procedure that lasted several hours. Following their exit, fire was directed towards the suspects. The incident is under review by the commanders on the ground and will be transferred to the relevant professional bodies. Now, some of that, I guess, is unarguable. They were clearly in a building. There was a process that was calling for their surrender, and fire very clearly did happen. The question is the circumstances at the end. The Israeli politicians who are, as I say, cheerleading for this, Itamar Ben-Gvir among them, have offered full, unqualified support to the border police and the IDF. I understand that the border police are saying that the two suspects were trying to get back into the building. Others will look at the video and say this, prima facie, is an execution.
The harrowing recording of her last words, a cry for help to the Palestinian Red Crescent, drew international outrage. Five-year-old Hind Rajab's body was recovered from a car riddled with bullets in Gaza City, days after she was last heard from in the desperate, hours-long phone call to the rescue service on January 29, 2024. The Israeli military had previously denied its troops were in the area at the time, but has now admitted to firing at the family car carrying Hind and 6 of her family members as they fled an Israeli invasion. Most of the family were killed, but under fire, one of Hind's cousins, Lian, made the emergency call. Seconds later, more shots were heard, and Lian's screaming stopped. Palestinian paramedics stayed on the line with Hind until contact was lost, while dispatching an ambulance to rescue her. According to the Israeli military, upon the ambulance's arrival, a shell was fired towards it, resulting in the death of 2 paramedics traveling in it. The bodies of Hind, her relatives, and the medics were recovered 12 days later. It's just one of the 150 incidents of troop conduct the Israeli army said it had reviewed. Of those, it said it would criminally investigate Hind Rajab's family's killing, as well as that of 15 paramedics in Rafah in March 2025. In that incident, according to phone footage and a sole survivor, Israeli troops opened fire on an ambulance that was driving to retrieve casualties, then fired on several other emergency vehicles that went out to look for the first one. Troops then bulldozed over the bodies and vehicles, burying them in a mass grave. Both incidents, as well as 3 others that the Israeli military dismissed on Wednesday, have sparked calls for independent investigations. Rights groups have also filed war crimes complaints to the International Criminal Court and requests to indict soldiers identified as involved in the killings.
All right, we're watching these clips, and it is terrible the way the IDF, the Israeli soldiers, are treating these innocent civilian peoples. It is absolutely horrible. And these so-called settlers, they're not settlers, my friend. They are gangs like the Crips and the Bloods, taking drugs, fully armed, even with hand grenades.
Israel's military acknowledged for the first time that it did open fire on a car carrying a 5-year-old girl known as Hind Rajab. That admission came in its first report on war crimes Israel is accused of committing in Gaza since October 7th, 2023. Now, Hind's story was made well known in a film called The Voice of Hind Rajab. In January 2024, her family car came under fire in Gaza City. 5 of her relatives were killed instantly. Hind survived and was on the phone with the Red Crescent for hours begging to be saved. Paramedics were then sent to rescue her, but their ambulance was hit in a second strike that killed both the medics inside. Hind died of her wounds, still trapped in her own car. Now, the film about her, which was nominated also for Best International Feature Film at this year's Oscars, used her real voice recordings to replay her final hours. The IDF has now ordered a criminal investigation, and investigators point to failures in how that rescue ambulance's movement was coordinated. In another case of alleged war crimes, the IDF ordered a criminal probe into the killings of 15 paramedics and rescue workers in March 2025. This is in the southern city of Rafah. Their bodies were later found buried in the sand, some still in their uniforms. One IDF brigade commander was censured and a deputy commander was removed from his post. But in 3 other cases, no criminal probes were ordered. One was in the deaths of 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers in an IDF strike in April of 2024. This is where the military said that its surveillance team misidentified those aid workers as Hamas. Officials have now called it tragic, but that it was not a crime. And in the other 2 cases, 4 staff with Doctors Without Borders were killed in Khan Yunis and in Gaza City. That last case has been closed entirely. Now, rights groups say these kinds of internal military probes rarely ever lead to convictions. The IDF, for its part, says that over 1,000 days of war has made this an exceptionally complex reality. There are still about 145 more incidents of alleged war crimes by the IDF still waiting on it.
Coming up, Israel has admitted for the first time that its soldiers fired into the car where 5-year-old Palestinian Hind Rajab and her 6 family members were killed in Gaza in January 2024. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Anjali Kamath. On Wednesday, Israel's military admitted for the first time that its soldiers opened fire on a car carrying 5-year-old Palestinian Hind Rajab, along with her aunt, uncle, and 5 of their children, as well as Palestine Red Crescent Society medics dispatched to rescue them. Israel's army fired more than 300 bullets in the attack in January 2024. In Gaza City, Hind Rajab's grandmother responded to the announcement.
We, as Hind Rajab's family, do not trust the judiciary of the State of Israel. We hope that justice will be delivered from the entire world. We appeal to the international justice system as a whole.
The Israeli military said it would also investigate the killing of 15 Palestinian paramedics, whose bodies and crushed emergency vehicles were recovered from a mass grave in Rafah in March 2025. This is Ghada al-Attar, the widow of Anwar al-Attar, one of the 15 medics. She spoke while holding the couple's young daughter.
The truth will not come, and the wound will keep bleeding. The pain is still the same. The loss grows day by day. Every time this girl gets older and asks me where her father is, and I can't answer her, the wound grows deeper. He was the pillar and support of the family. He's gone. The investigation won't achieve anything.
Israel said it would not investigate 3 other attacks on Gaza that killed 8 workers from World Central Kitchen and Doctors Without Borders. And Israel made no mention of thousands of other incidents where Palestinian civilians were killed by Israeli forces. For more, we go to Los Angeles, where we're joined by Sharif Abdul Quddus, award-winning journalist and the Middle East North Africa editor at Dropsite News. He was correspondent on the Fault Lines documentary The Night Won't End on Al Jazeera English that investigated the killings of civilians in Gaza by the Israeli military. Sharif, welcome back to Democracy Now! Can you talk about why these investigations have been announced, why these 2 particular cases, and why now?
Firstly, these were 5 incidents out of apparently 150 that were reviewed by the Israeli military. I think it's not a coincidence that all 5 of these were among the most widely covered incidents of the war. They were documented in real time, and they were very prominent cases, mostly massacres. We don't know what happened to the other 145 incidents that they apparently reviewed. Now, the 2 incidents that you mentioned that are being referred to military police for criminal investigations, this seems to be nothing more than political theater, to be honest. As numerous Palestinian and international human rights groups have documented for years, Israel's internal investigations into the criminal conduct of its own soldiers are fundamentally flawed, and they can't be regarded as credible mechanisms for accountability, and they instead function primarily to shield Israel from international tribunals or prosecution abroad, rather than delivering any kind of justice. The Israeli human rights group B'Tselem has called these investigations a sham. It's called them, quote, a legal iron dome to protect Israeli soldiers from international accountability. And let's remember that since the genocide began, Israel claims to have referred over 1,000 incidents involving its soldiers to its fact-finding assessment mechanism. And, it says it's opened dozens of criminal investigations. There is no comprehensive public accounting of the status or outcome of these investigations. There was a review by the NGO Action on Armed Violence of over 50 reported Israeli military probes. It found that 88% had been either closed or that a finding of wrongdoing had been closed without a finding of wrongdoing, and they remained under review. Only one of them resulted in a prison sentence. So, I think this is a lot more political theater, and it may be coming as Israel is coming under increasing international scrutiny, international criticism for the genocide in Gaza. And finally, I'll just say, it doesn't matter what Israel says or what its investigation concludes in these 2 incidents. The responsibility for the murder of Hind Rajab and her family was well established long ago through multiple in-depth investigations by the media, by human rights groups, and the evidence is overwhelming. We know that an Israeli tank fired at least 335 rounds at a civilian car at Hind Rajab, a 5-year-old, and 6 members of her family from a range of just 13 to 23 meters away. The Red Crescent, which had Hind on the phone for close to 3 hours, was waiting for approval to try and go rescue her. And finally, they get approval from the Israeli military. The Israeli military issues an approved route with a map. 2 emergency workers with the Red Crescent go in an ambulance along that route. When they reach the destination, Israel fires a tank shell at them. It's a direct hit and kills both of them and destroys the ambulance. Then the Israeli military continuously lied afterwards. It repeatedly denied it had any tanks operating in the area, even though there's clear satellite images that show multiple tanks in the area on that day. Even though we hear a recording of Hind's cousin, Layan, 15-year-old Layan, saying there's a tank right next to her right before she starts screaming as a hail of bullets from the tank murders her. And then we have 5-year-old Hind, hours of recordings of her, saying also that there's a tank right next to her before her voice eventually fades away and she dies. So we don't need to wait for an Israeli investigation to know what happened here.
Sharif, you've set that up so movingly. I want to turn to an excerpt of your Al Jazeera English documentary, The Night Won't End, which takes an in-depth look at these attacks on civilians by the Israeli military in Gaza, including on Hind Rajab and her family. Let's go to a clip.
All right, thank you for joining us on Just Say No. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and keep watching. We really appreciate it. Keep protesting. Keep fighting fascism and genocide and murder. Stop giving money and weapons to Israel. We, the American people, have to recapture our democracy and make our leaders live in the same realm we live in, and to follow constitutional law, which is what this country is all about, and which is the foundation of real democracy, which is what we want. Democracy, justice, human rights, and equal rights for all individuals. All right, keep watching. Just Say No. Today we want to focus on 2 particular issues before we go to the electronic intifada. Gaza and the West Bank and Lebanon and Syria have been forgotten. They are still murdering people every day in the Gaza. And also they are picking up the murders in the West Bank and demolitions of houses constantly under the smokescreen of attacking Iran. While Netanyahu continues ruthlessly attacking our...
Here's a brief summary of some of the latest developments this week in Palestine. Israel has killed at least 500 Palestinians and injured nearly 2,300 between September 3rd and September 10th, according to official records from the Ministry of Health in Gaza. On Wednesday, September 10th, at least 72 Palestinians were killed since dawn, including 53 in Gaza City alone. Israel has put the entirety of Gaza City under a forced displacement order as it bombs high-rise apartment and office towers, homes, and shelters, vaporizing dozens of buildings, one city block after another, with no end in sight. Our contributor Asim Anabih, the spokesperson for the Gaza municipality, posted this photo of one of the leaflets the Israelis dropped over Gaza City on September 8th. He writes that, quote, "As the sun rises, Israel drops leaflets on us, demanding that we leave Gaza City. I contemplate the leaflet and its poor language. I contemplate the details of the faces of my fellow workers and engineers, still preparing their equipment to begin work. I go out to the gate of the heavy machinery garage and contemplate the heavy footsteps of the people and their emaciated bodies. I return to my office, burdened with sadness and grief for Gaza, its people, and myself. I sit on a chair worn by war, dust, and worries, browsing the news and photos of my beloved, thousands of miles away. All that comes to my mind is that death is very close, closer than ever, and God is the source of help." Since Friday, September 5th, at least 7 high-rise towers have been obliterated by constant Israeli airstrikes. The Mushtaha Tower was destroyed on September 5th. Journalist Wissam Shabat filmed this clip showing the moment Israeli warplanes targeted the high-rise. The Al-Susi high-rise residential building was struck on September 6th. Instagram user Yazan Racha filmed this clip. On September 7th, the Al Roya commercial building was destroyed. Journalist Ahmed Ibrahim captured the explosion on camera. The 12-floor building housed the headquarters of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, along with media offices, medical clinics, sports facilities, and other civilian offices and companies. PCHR said that their office on the top floor had been bombarded and extensively damaged since the start of the ongoing genocide. It was also raided by the Israeli army and used as a military base during its previous operations in Gaza City, rendering their offices inoperable. Their 2 other offices in Khan Yunis and Jabalia were completely destroyed last year, the group added. The Israeli army hit As-Salam Tower at night on September 8th. Journalist Faiz Kureka shot this video of the moment the building exploded. Mahmoud Basal, the spokesperson for Gaza's civil defense, stated on September 8th that the 5 buildings that had been destroyed until that point contained more than 200 apartments, with at least 20 people per unit, leaving more than 4,100 residents homeless in one night. Surrounding the towers, he says, were more than 350 tents, each sheltering families of around 10 people, which were also destroyed, displacing another 3,500. In total, more than 550 families, some 7,600 people, have been stripped of shelter and basic necessities, forced into tragic and unbearable conditions. We continue to call on the world, he says, to take action to protect innocent people here in Gaza before it is too late. More massive apartment blocks were destroyed on September 9th, and on September 10th, Israel hit the Taiba Towers in western Gaza City. Instagram user Mohammed Hamouda filmed this clip. Euromed Human Rights Monitor stated that the airstrike killed approximately 15 displaced Palestinians who had sought safety in and around the building. Civil defense worker Mohammed Komsan described the overwhelming terror of displaced families as Israel's wanton destruction of Gaza City has escalated.
One of these towers, as you can see. Hello everyone. Today in Gaza we're facing all kinds of forced displacement, not just a house or 2. The occupation bombs massive residential towers that once sheltered hundreds of families. In seconds, their dreams and memories are gone. And when a tower collapses, one big question remains. Where are all these families supposed to go? Where is there any safe place left? Every day the space around us gets smaller. The occupation advances, pushing us tighter between the sea, the tanks, and the rubble. Displacement isn't just losing walls of your home. It's a deep psychological wound, constant fear and anxiety, a scene of loss, and sometimes even feel like a stranger among your own people. This is our reality today, a reality where people are stripped of the simplest right, the right to have a place to sleep.
Mohammed Kumsan of the Civil Defense in Gaza. The strike on the Al Roya commercial building on September 7th happened just days after the United States officially sanctioned the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, along with Al-Haq and Al-Mizan, the leading human rights organizations working on international criminal accountability for perpetrators of atrocity crimes in Palestine. In a joint statement on September 5th, the human rights groups said that, quote, threatened by the impact and role of our advocacy, legal research, and documentation in exposing Israel's ongoing international crimes, the United States has resorted to punishing individuals and organizations seeking to uphold the legal system upon which the international community was founded. The implications go beyond Palestine. By protecting Israel from accountability, they are dismantling the international legal order and undermining the possibility of justice for victims of grave crimes anywhere. Israel also targeted a facility for people with disabilities in central Gaza City on September 7th. Journalist Ahmed Kahil captured the strike. Kahil also documented Israel's attack on the Thawba Mosque that same day in the Al-Daraj neighborhood. He says that right after the attack on the mosque, the area was targeted a second time while he was filming. Quote, just now the place was bombed again, a totally random bombing, he says. A man on the street tells Kahil that the Israeli army called people and said they will strike again, and told them to evacuate this area as they are about to bomb it.
الآن قيام جيش الاحتلال باستهداف مسجد التوبة في حي الدرج. هذا هو مشهد الدمار الذي حدث في المنطقة. الآن تم استهداف المكان مرة أخرى ونحن في المنطقة متواجدون. الآن تم استهداف المكان مرة أخرى. ايش اللي صار؟
رنوا عليه قالوا له بدنا نخبط في ناس رجعت تاني في الشارع قالوا يدخلوا من بيني معانا ازعجوا عليهم يقولوا لهم يطلعوا بدنا نخبط.
That was from journalist Ahmed Kahil on September 7th. Palestinians in Gaza City say they are not leaving their city on Israel's orders. Journalist Nahed Hajjaj captured this clip of a man standing on a pile of rubble on September 10th, saying, quote, the army is striking high-rise buildings to force people to go south. I'm not leaving. If Netanyahu destroys everything, I'm not leaving. I will clean this up and live here once again. I'm not leaving. Even if I have to die here, I am not leaving.
الجيش قاعد بيضرب ابراج عشان يخلي الناس تروح على الجنوب. مش طالع. لو بده يعدل مش طالع نتنياهو. مش طالع. لا تضف فوق ثاني. مش طالع. طيب ليش تروح على الجنوب رغم التهديدات؟ معناش ما له دعوه فيا. مش طالع. والله لو بموت فيها ما انا طالع.
Palestinians led a demonstration in Gaza City against Israel's genocidal displacement orders. Dr. Munir al-Bursh, the Director General of the Ministry of Health in Gaza, posted this photo of himself at the protest on Wednesday. He stated, quote, in a historic scene, community leaders, families, healthcare teams, and all the people of Gaza gathered in one of the largest demonstrations, carrying Palestinian flags and symbolic shrouds to declare a unified stance. Displacement from Gaza only towards the sky. Gaza tells the world, we will not leave except as martyrs. Here we were born and here we remain. Meanwhile, a BBC investigation found that U.S. mercenary forces working security at the joint American-Israeli private Gaza Humanitarian Foundation killing sites masquerading as aid distribution points include members of a motorcycle gang with an extremist, right-wing, white Christian nationalist ideology. At least 10 members of the Infidels Motorcycle Club, who are working in Gaza for UG Solutions, a private contractor providing security at the GHF sites, have been identified by the British broadcaster, which revealed that 7 members of the gang are in senior security positions in Gaza. Quote, Infidels MC was set up by U.S. military veterans of the Iraq War in 2006, and members see themselves as modern crusaders, using the Crusader cross as their symbol, a reference to the medieval Christians who fought Muslims for control of Jerusalem, the BBC says. The gang is currently hosting anti-Muslim hate speech on its Facebook page, and has previously held a pig roast in defiance of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The gang's leader, Johnny Taz Mulford, is a former sergeant in the U.S. Army who was punished for conspiracy to commit bribery, theft, and making false statements to military authorities. He is now the country team leader running UG Solutions contract in Gaza. UG Solutions is paying each contractor nearly $1,000 per day, including expenses, rising to about $1,600 per day for team leaders at GHF's so-called safe distribution sites, documents seen by the BBC show. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have killed nearly 2,500 Palestinians and injured more than 17,000 at so-called aid sites since the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation began its operations in late May, according to the Ministry of Health in Gaza. Children and adults alike are continuing to die of starvation across Gaza. The health ministry said that 5 deaths from starvation were reported between Tuesday and Wednesday, including a child, bringing the total recorded number of deaths from malnutrition to 404, including 141 children. The mother of 18-month-old Ali Abdul Nasser Abu Adra, who is hospitalized with extreme malnutrition at Nasser Medical Complex, says that her baby's weight has dropped to just 3 kilograms. He should weigh at least 10, and he is suffering from chronic diarrhea and dehydration. Journalist Mohammed Ashraf Salama captured this clip of the mother and her baby Ali earlier this week. She says that her son is so fragile that medical staff haven't been able to insert an intravenous cannula into his body for the past 10 days, and that he is in desperate need of treatments that are not available due to Israel's ongoing blockade. She adds that a referral for medical evacuation was issued 9 months ago and was renewed last month, but the World Health Organization has not contacted her yet, nor have they provided her with any assistance. Malnourished patients at Nasser Medical Complex are dying, she warns. Quote, there is no treatment and no nutrition. Israel is continuing to attack and bomb medical facilities in Gaza. On September 7th, Israeli quadcopter drones attacked the Association for Women and Child Protection, a maternity care facility, killing a child and a pregnant woman seeking services and injuring several Palestinians. A man was also killed. His own child found him in pieces. The man, identified as Ahmed Ashur al-Ghul, was a staff member at the facility. He had asked his young son, Laith, to fetch his phone charger from his office nearby. As the boy walked back with the charger in hand, the Israeli drone bombed the entrance to the clinic, with Laith finding his father's body and head torn to pieces in front of him, according to al-Ghul's cousin, the novelist and activist Yusri al-Ghul. Journalist Mahmoud Abu Salama reported from the scene following the drone strike. Along with showing several people killed and wounded, his camera captures Laith staring at his father's body. Abu Salama says that another Israeli airstrike has just happened near the hospital. Quote, here is a violent Israeli airstrike targeting this place. A number of martyrs, as you can see. This is the scene, he says.
استهداف الآن بجوار مستشفى الوفا عدد من الشهداء والمصابين كما تشاهدون في هذه الغارة الإسرائيلية هنا في هذا المكان. هذه غارة أخرى أيضا بجوار المستشفى كما تشاهدون، طائرة لاستهداف بجوار مستشفى الوفا. هنا غارة إسرائيلية عنيفة استهدفت هذا المكان، عددا من الشهداء كما تشاهدون. هذا هو المشهد لمنتظري الشهداء. هذا هو المشهد.
Turning quickly to the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers stormed Masafar Yatta near Al Khalil on September 5th, stabbing and assaulting the villagers of Khalat al-Daba. Sahat news agency reported that at least 13 Palestinians were wounded, including a 3-month-old baby, 2 elders, and women and children. On September 10th, armed settlers attacked the homes and properties of Palestinians south of Al Khalil, according to Wafa news agency. A local resident said that settlers used tractors and drones to terrorize people and their livestock in the area. He added that settlers have been playing loud music at night in an attempt to instill fear among the local children. Israeli soldiers have been raiding towns and villages northwest of Jerusalem for days, following a suspected resistance operation by Palestinians earlier this week at the Ramot Junction in occupied East Jerusalem, which killed 6 people and wounded 12. Local sources told Wafa news agency on Wednesday that Israeli forces stormed the town of Biddu amidst confrontations and fired live ammunition, tear gas, and sound bombs at Palestinians. They raided and searched several homes. The sources added that Israel launched a large-scale raid on homes in the towns of Katna and Al-Kubaiba, assaulting people, ransacking and searching their contents, and turning a home into a military barracks. They detained and interrogated citizens on the spot. Al Jazeera reported on September 9th that during the intensified raids, Israeli forces destroyed 3 other homes of Palestinian resistance operatives and a detainee accused of an earlier attack as punishment. Soldiers encircled the house of detainee Thabit Masalma, accused of having carried out a shooting in December in the town of Beit Awa, southwest of Hebron, before blowing up the property with explosives. The raid sparked clashes with locals, during which Israeli soldiers fired live ammunition, wounding 2 people. Masalma is accused of taking part in an attack that killed an Israeli settler and wounded 3 people. The demolition left the detainee's wife, parents, and 3 children homeless. In the town of Aqaba, north of Tubas, Israeli forces also demolished the homes of 2 prominent local leaders of the Qassam Brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, who had been killed in Israeli operations, Al Jazeera reported. We've published many features on the electronic intifada in the last week, but we wanted to highlight There Is Nowhere Left to Go, We Are Trapped, by Malak Hijazi, writing from Gaza City. Malak writes, quote, "Before the announcement of a ceasefire in January 2025, I was among the 400,000 people who stayed in northern Gaza. The experience was overwhelming and unbearably hard. Israel did everything possible to force us southward. We endured severe bombardment, chessboard-like displacement, and famine for more than a year. But my family and I refused to leave. We knew the occupation could not force us to abandon the places where we were born, raised, and lived most of our lives. And we knew that if we left northern Gaza, the occupation would take over our land. The morning of September 9th, after a night of relentless shelling that shook both the walls and our nerves, I woke to the news that the Israeli army had ordered 900,000 people in Gaza City to move southward to what they call a humanitarian zone. The warning came shortly after Netanyahu declared, quote, "In the past 2 days, 50 of these towers have fallen. The Air Force brought them down. Now all of this is just an introduction, just a prelude to the main intense operation, a ground maneuver of our forces who are now organizing and gathering in Gaza City." On the maps, the entire area was marked in red, a color that now signifies danger and death. Netanyahu calls these attacks a prelude, while for us, life has been a continuous hell. The Israeli F-16s and helicopters are intensifying their bombing of the city while quadcopter drones hover above. Sometimes they drop leaflets with evacuation orders. Other times they release small bombs directly over our heads and homes. They have broadcast insults that I have personally heard, calling us cows and dogs, or shout, "Stay tuned, we will invade Gaza City soon." In recent days, Israel has destroyed several prominent buildings in Gaza, including Al-Susi and Al-Roya towers, landmarks that once anchored neighborhoods and gave the city a sense of structure, identity, and even a hint of modernity. The families who had lived in them were suddenly homeless. These buildings had also been surrounded by dozens of tents, families living in their shadow after losing their homes. When the towers fell, the rubble crushed the spaces where the tents had been, and the displaced were displaced again, their shelters rendered uninhabitable. This is not a battle. Each armored vehicle carries enough explosive to obliterate everything within 100 meters, including homes, streets, and all that lies between. The tanks roam the streets like mechanized predators, forcing entire neighborhoods to flee in panic. My family and I have searched desperately for an apartment farther south in the Strip. Khan Yunis and Rafah have already been pulverized, reduced to ruins. We cannot survive winter in a tent. We have called every number, begged friends, searched endlessly. There is nowhere left in Gaza to absorb us. Many people will not leave, not because they want to risk their lives, but because of the numb indifference that follows witnessing genocide. Death has become, for many, the easier and more affordable option. For us, there is no longer even the illusion of choice. The walls are closing in, and we ask not only where we can go, but whether there will be any place left at all. Those are excerpts from There Is Nowhere Left to Go, We Are Trapped by Malak Hijazi, a writer in Gaza, on electronicintifada.net. And now, as we always do, we wanted to highlight people expressing joy, determination, and resilience across Gaza. Ahmed Mouin Abu Amsha, a music teacher and someone we frequently feature in this section, documented his own perilous forced displacement this past week. But in setting up his tent shelter near the beach, he found a new parachute to protect the kids from the sun, which he said he will put above the tents and the activity spaces he and his colleagues have established for music classes. He captioned this clip, quote, "We played with it under the strong wind. It was pulling us, and the children's laughter filled the air. Later, we set it up as a safe shade above the tents. Even though preparing the new space took so much time and effort, we do our best to create a place of joy and hope for the children."
Hello everyone. Today we have a parachute. I'm gonna put it above my tents and for the activity to cover the kids from the sun.
And Instagram user Muhannad Abu Kamar, who regularly posts videos singing with friends and children on the beach, sang a song for the Gaza-bound International Flotilla, which is aiming to break the siege on Gaza with dozens of boats this week.
من شاطئ بحر غز بنستنى في اسطول الحرية يا اسطول الحرية بدكم القوية بتفعل القضية غز بنستناكم ندعي ربي معاكم يحفظكم اللاذية غز بتستناكم
And that's it for the news roundup. As always, go to electronicintifada.net for much more, especially to read our new features by our brave writers in Gaza.
Though they boasted solitude, God was at their side, nor the dreamer in his...
There are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of beheaded Palestinian babies and children, Palestinian children with severed limbs, killed by Israel. And not a single corporate media outlet has reported on how Israel has systematically beheaded Palestinian children on a daily basis for the last 15 months. And yet every single one of these Western media outlets was so quick to spread the mass atrocity propaganda in order to manufacture consent for Israel's genocide by repeating a story about an incident which never took place.
So the last thing I got to say today is please wake up. Write your congressman. Get active in the political struggle. Help your students who are protesting for peace.